Start? Continuing our discussion of guru issues. Again today I'm going to speak about something which is not so very pleasant, but it's an issue that many devotees face, or a group of issues that many devotees face. And I hope that by discussing this topic that devotees who feel doubts in their mind or feel discontent may be solaced by coming to a more realistic understanding, and maybe some who have somewhat inappropriate attitude also may also benefit. What I'm going to talk about is gurus who are aloof. We hear about the early days of Srila Prabhupada's movement in 1966, 1967 in America. And naturally we think, oh, that must have been really good to have so much intimate association with Srila Prabhupada. Those devotees were so fortunate. But the reality for most devotees nowadays, most devotees who join ISKCON and who come to the level of being initiated, the reality for them is that they will not be able to interact much with their Diksha gurus. It might seem that the guru is just like some kind of mystical figure, just a picture on the altar that you pray to for blessings, but you can't ever reach him and you don't expect to get any practical guidance from him. And we may think, well, that the descriptions of gurus living with their disciples, we have in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, the brahmachari who lives with the guru in his ashram in the 7th canto also. Well, it's not like that with all gurus in history. We see Ramanujacharya had thousands of disciples spread out all over India, concentrated in South India, but he traveled widely. We hear about Madhavendra Puri. He came to the house of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya requested initiation from him. Madhavendra Puri gave it, and the next day he left. And maybe there was no record of their meeting ever again. How did that work? So he may think that, yeah, I'd really like to have close association with the guru, but remember, guru means heavy, and you might not be able to take it. Maybe it may be better in some sense. Not better, but yeah, it's an unrealistic and maybe sentimental feeling that, well, I'd really like to have personal association with the guru. Srila Prabhupada, so I heard, discouraged devotees who wanted to save money and just travel around with him. As he traveled around the world, he told them, better you stay in one spot and do some real service. The link with the guru is by service, by hearing, by following, and by service. Analogously, several devotees from the West mostly, hearing about how there's good brahmachari association at ISKCON Salem in South India, came with the idea of staying, householders also, but didn't stay very long, because that good atmosphere is based on discipline, austerity, dedication, and a lot of service and submission. You don't get the benefit just by being in proximity. One actually has to submit to the process. Otherwise, Srila Prabhupada gave the example that a mosquito is very close to the king. The king may be sitting on his throne and a mosquito is there, but the mosquito, although he's very closely physically associated, is simply giving trouble. So devotees may have unrealistic expectations also, that I'll be initiated and I'll interact with my guru so much. Srila Prabhupada wanted his sannyasis to have 10,000 disciples each. He stated that. And as a guru accepts more disciples, his ability to personally interact with all of them inversely decreases. As with Srila Prabhupada, that's why we hear about the early devotees. They had so much intimate and personal association. Of course, in those days, they didn't know how to properly interact with the guru, so they didn't get as much benefit as devotees. In one sense, they didn't get as much benefit as those devotees who came later, and there's already a movement set up, and there was a training system, or some kind of training system, and there was a whole setup of Krishna consciousness, which Srila Prabhupada deliberately set up. Morning program, evening program, authority system. There was something to plug into, and it was easy to follow in that, easy to pick up Krishna consciousness. Whereas in the very beginning, devotees, they didn't have a proper concept of what it was to have a guru, and Srila Prabhupada had to spoon feed them. He didn't even tell them to shave their heads in the beginning. He didn't even tell them to follow 4 regulated principles at the very beginning. So it's not necessarily that the early disciples, because they had a lot of physical association with Srila Prabhupada, actually got the best benefit of being a disciple. Many of those who came early fell away. Many of those who didn't fall away struggled, and they went on with their Krishna consciousness, but they had serious fall downs, both some in the presence of Srila Prabhupada and some afterwards. Often it's thought that those who come earlier are most fortunate. It seems like that, but it's not so. One time, one devotee, female devotee, I just can't remember who it was now, she mentioned to Yamuna Devi Dasi, who was well known in ISKCON as being a devotee who had a lot of personal training from Srila Prabhupada. And this one lady devotee said to Yamuna once, this was after the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, "Oh, you're so fortunate to have so much personal association with Srila Prabhupada." And Yamuna, who's generally very mild in her dealings, just slammed her fist down on the table and said, I'm paraphrasing, of course, "Don't say that. Don't think like that. No one is less fortunate by having less association. You associate by service and hearing. You don't get any less benefit from not directly associating in terms of physical association." In terms of understanding Srila Prabhupada better, or any guru for that matter, we may think, well, the early devotees who had so much personal association, they must have understood him best. But we can take an example from the Madhva Sampradaya, that Madhvacharya, he wrote so many books, generally very terse comments he gave. Or in his Bhagavatam commentary, he would often just quote another verse from another source to explain it. But the system of Madhva Siddhanta, what we now call Madhva Siddhanta, the understanding of Bhakti, according to the teachings of Madhvacharya, was much illuminated and clarified by a devotee who came after the time of Madhvacharya, Jayatirtha. So that's parampara goes on like that, contrary to what our Ritvik friends, or they practically act as enemies, would say, that acharyas, in course of time, they clarify and represent and clear up controversies regarding the previous acharyas' teachings. And a great example of that is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was instrumental in settling the Parakiya-Swakiya dispute, being very strongly on the side of Parakiya. And the Swakiya misunderstanding that, well, it's not a misunderstanding, but it's not a full and complete representation of the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Swakiyavad means the contention that Radha and Krishna are eternally married, and Parakiyavad means the contention that they're not married. They are as if adulterous. Krishna is as if adulterous. So Parakiyavad won out, largely due to the intervention of and writings of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and many of the books of the Goswamis, important books for guiding the Sampradaya, were very long and difficult Sanskrit, and it wasn't expected that everyone could read them. Also, he made summaries. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bindhu, Ujjvala Nilamani. Bindu, he made summaries in clear language. He did so many things as a great acharya. So he influenced and changed the course of this. Well, not changed the course, but he helped to significantly define the course of the Sampradaya by setting up temples, initiating, and so many things he did. So I'm getting a little bit off the topic, but the point I'm making is that those who had direct association, because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he clarified the teachings of Rupa Goswami for the Sampradaya. He didn't have personal association with him. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wrote the definitive work by which we best understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He didn't have personal association with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's not necessarily that those who had direct personal association are the ones who best understand the Guru. Varni and Vapu. There are these two words. Vapu means the physical form of the Guru that we see, and Varni means the instructions. Now, of course, this understanding shouldn't be taken to the extreme so that it becomes a misunderstanding, because the Vapu is also important. If Srila Prabhupada hadn't come to the West and explained Krishna consciousness, then I wouldn't be giving this talk, and there wouldn't be a worldwide movement of Krishna consciousness. Even if the books had somehow or other been translated into English and just sent around the world, to show what it means to be a pure devotee and to guide and direct and to train and to set up a movement, that requires a person to do this. In this regard, I'm going to quote a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, which was spoken by Uddhava to Krishna after Krishna had instructed Uddhava in the yoga system, and which is also quoted by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the first chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, stating how the guru, the vapu, the form of the form that physical, it's difficult to say physical because it's spiritual, but anyway, we have to use inadequate language. The physical manifestation of the guru who we see in our eyes is also required. So this is the verse. Naivo payantya pachiting kavayasta vesha brahmayusha pikritam riddha muda smarantaha yontar bahistanu britang ashubhang vidhunvan acharya chaitya vapusha swagating vyanakti. Srila Prabhupada's translation. O my Lord, this is Uddhava speaking to Krishna. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma, for you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. Now, according to the Ritvik Vadis, we shouldn't have any guru after Srila Prabhupada, because he's the only initiating guru for all devotees into the future. But then Srila Prabhupada becomes just like Chaitya Guru, the Paramama in the heart. You get direction from the instructions only. But here we see that Vapusha, the form, Acharya, there are two forms, Acharya Vapu and Chaitya Vapu. So the Acharya is specifically stated and is continued to be explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the Mahanta, the great devotee who teaches, he teaches the devotee. So yes, the instructions of the previous acharyas are there, and we can access them. But also the devotee, that's the system that Krishna gives. Krishna appears as the guru to give direction personally to the devotees. Now there we again getting back to that point. Well, what about personal? What about personal then? Because if you can't get any association with your guru, if he's so aloof. Years ago, I remember hearing in Russia, where it was pretty wild in the early days of ISKCON there, as so many people took to Krishna consciousness so suddenly, and then many people got initiated, and it wasn't possible to train hardly any devotees, especially in the early days. Well, there are so many reasons. One major reason is the movement was underground, and even when it became overground, and then the movement expanded so much, and it wasn't possible. And there's so many things, such a big country, and then senior devotees who could come from other countries to train others. They also didn't understand Russian as a language. So many reasons. Now, I just remember that there was one devotee. I don't remember exactly the context, but anyway, it was quite popular at the time that different gurus from the Gauriya Math would also visit Russia, and initiate people that were coming to ISKCON, and some of them, in some cases, gave what they called reinitiation to devotees who had already been initiated by an ISKCON guru, which is not proper according to any etiquette, but they used to do it. I don't want to get into that now on that topic. So there was one devotee who had been initiated by an ISKCON guru, and he was very happy when he got reinitiated by Gauriya Mat Guru. He said, you see, previously I couldn't get any letters from my guru in ISKCON, but now I'm reinitiated. I write and he immediately replies. Okay, but how long would that go on for? As the guru travels around and picks up more disciples, how many can he personally live? How can he personally reply to? Some gurus in ISKCON today get hundreds of emails daily. And, well, many of them are with management issues, especially if they're GBC members. Many are concerned with management issues which require their attention. And many letters from disciples with so many problems, or they just want to share what they're doing, and they expect to get a reply promptly and in detail, but how much can you deal with? Letters from Russia especially tend to be very long. Russians tend to be very personalistic. Of course, at the present time, at the time I'm speaking this, there is a wave of opinion going around that, well, all Russians are bad. Nonsense. Long letters from Russians, and not only from Russia, but many letters describing the intricate and complex situations that the devotees are in, and expecting the guru to be able to understand all the different details. And sometimes you get letters, I get letters from both husband and wife blaming each other and giving their side of the story and expecting you to accept only their side of the story, or letters with devotees having difficulties dealing with ISKCON authorities. There's so many letters. How many can you deal with? Once, this is before I myself had started initiating, and one of my godbrothers who was initiating in Russia, I asked him, how do you deal with so many letters that you get? He said, I don't. I asked him, what do you mean? He said, I don't reply. I can't reply to one of them. Another godbrother of mine who was initiating in Russia, he used the word inhuman. He said, it's inhuman the way so many devotees write to me and they expect me to reply to so many letters. The same guru, he once said, just in the course of conversation, he said to me, the last thing I need is more disciples. And I was surprised to hear it, because I thought, well, he does have many disciples, but he's a very good guru, and the devotees love him. And it would be good if he had more disciples, because he's such a good devotee. But from his point of view, the last thing I need is more disciples. So this is a strain. Strain for him. Once, no, not once, actually, but Prabhu Vishnu Swami, as he was for so many years, he told me that when he was in London, he started his devotional life in London, joined in London, UK. And he told me that 3 times in his presence, Srila Prabhupada turned to disciples who he knew in London and asked concerning Prabhavishnu Swami, who is that boy? He twice asked. And Prabhavishnu was initiated at the time. Who is, he didn't know. Later on, Srila Prabhupada got to personally know him. But he didn't get to personally know everyone. When I joined, there was no question of barging your way in on Srila Prabhupada. He came to Bhaktivedanta Manor. I remember the first time I saw him at Bhaktivedanta Manor where I joined. And I saw that Srila Prabhupada was dealing very personally with Mukunda, who was at that time hadn't accepted sannyas. And Mukunda is very gentlemanly and soft-spoken. I didn't know, actually, that he had such a close relationship with Srila Prabhupada. But obviously, Srila Prabhupada was very comfortable in dealing with him. And for most of the devotees, we sat there and we listened to Srila Prabhupada. But we wouldn't have a personal interaction as we had, as Srila Prabhupada had with Mukunda Prabhu, because how many people can you deal with personally? Krishna expands himself into so many forms in Rasa Lila. The Guru is non-different from Krishna in one sense, but certainly not in all senses. He's in one sense that he conveys the same message as Krishna, and being like the example Srila Prabhupada gave, like the Viceroy, in that regard should be respected as much as the Guru, as much as Krishna. But he's not Krishna. He's different. Now he may think then, well, an aloof Guru, what does it do for you? Then you might as well just be a Ritvigvadi. And Ritvigvadis, they don't have any guru present in this world. They say Srila Prabhupada. And then they'll say, yes, Prabhupada is present in this world. He is in some ways, but not in the way that he was from 1896 to 1977. But there is a difference between a guru initiating someone and a Ritvigvadi, Ritvigite, pretending to initiate someone, pretending that they are officiating as Srila Prabhupada is initiating someone. There is a difference, because the Guru takes the responsibility to guide his disciples, and the Guru is supposed to set a personal example to others that others can emulate. That's meaning of acharya, by his activity, by his actions. Achar means proper behavior. So an acharya, by his proper behavior, shows the standard that others should follow. And the gurus are supposed to be spiritual authorities who others can look up to and who can explain scripture and apply that in the life of others. Now, it may be that they seem too aloof to do that, but then there's supposed to be system. Just like when I joined, I was told, actually, don't write to Srila Prabhupada because he gets so many letters. And Srila Prabhupada himself had several times said that if you have any questions, don't ask me. You can read my books, and you can consult my senior devotees, my senior disciples, who Srila Prabhupada did train an inner core of disciples. He would keep his GBC men with him, one GBC man for 1 month. And they were expected to impart that to others and go down. There was GBC, then Tamil presidents, and they were supposed to train others. And I got trained. There wasn't at that time in 1975 when I joined, there was no formal training program. But devotees told me all kinds of things. They showed me how to put on dhoti, how to put on tilak, and the philosophy. And in the beginning, I used to ask so many questions, and devotees kindly answered them. So my senior god brothers were acting as representatives of Srila Prabhupada to help to train me, because they had heard from Srila Prabhupada and his representatives. Otherwise, if you say, well, everyone's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and someone who's getting initiated now, 20 years old, and they're the same as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who's 70 years old, well, it's all the same. It's like kind of Mayavad. It's all one. It's nonsense. Because there's no basis in Guru or Sadhu or Shastra. Now, on the other hand, there may be devotees who really don't want to get close to their Guru at all. Their relationship with their Guru, or their whole approach to having a Guru, is a kind of sham. They like to have a big Guru who they know won't interfere with their life at all, but it's getting initiated. That means, okay, now you've entered ISKCON. Now it's a rite of passage. You're no longer just someone who comes, but now you're initiated. And then when you get second initiated, okay, all right, good, he's got it. Or he may think, good, I got it. It's a mark of acceptance. So someone may want someone who has so many disciples, knowing that the Guru won't guide him, won't insist on him following rules, and they prefer to be distant because they want a Guru as a formality. They don't want anyone to interfere in their life. So kind of lip service they pay to their Guru. They feel comfortable with a Guru because Guru means heavy, and if someone's going to be a Guru, then they're going to get on your case, and they may feel comfortable if someone who they've little or no contact with. I know there are two cases I know of devotees who left ISKCON. One was already a sannyasi, then he wanted to be a Babaji. Another was a brahmachari, and he wanted to be a sannyasi. And they both went to very, very old devotees, knowing that their Guru was going to die soon. So it's a sham. They took a Guru just, okay, I got a Guru. But they didn't really want a Guru to instruct them. They wanted the Guru to die as soon as possible. Or even if he's not dead, then he's too old to restrict me or train me or guide me. So it's just, who are you initiated by? So-and-so. Oh, okay, very good. Or someone may be very comfortable with a so-called Ritvik initiation because there's no one to pull their ear. It's the same thing. I don't know how it works in Ritvikism. They probably have some system where I'm sure they have some kind of authority system, but theoretically there should be no one with any spiritual authority over anyone else because they're all the someone who's initiated 50 years ago and someone who's initiated 5 days ago, they're all supposed to be disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So there's no one to get on their case. So nice. It's nice to imagine yourself to be a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada. They don't want a strong attachment to a guru. Well, the Ritvik thing came up out of fear that, it's supposed to be safe, because if you accept a living guru, that you may be afraid that he'll fall or disappoint. So if you accept Srila Prabhupada as a guru, then he won't fall or disappoint. Well, for that matter, you could go why bother with Prabhupada? You can go directly to Rupa Goswami, can't you? Go directly to Lord Brahma. Why? If you go to Prabhupada, you have to go through a whole parampara. Just go straight up to Lord Brahma. Take initiation from him. But there are those who want to have a strong and intimate relationship with their guru, at least superficially they say that, although actually whether they could take it or not, that would have to be seen. But there are others who don't want strong attachment to Guru, and act largely as if the Guru didn't exist. One devotee, when he was asked about that, well, you don't see your Guru, you don't make any particular effort to have any contact, then he said, well, it's what I have is good enough for me. What does he have? Well, he has the name, he's initiated by so-and-so. But he's a spiritual authority, supposed to be a spiritual authority over others. But then who's his guru? His mind is his own guide? What's going on? Even we see among some ISKCON leaders, they just want to downplay the guru-disciple relationship. They don't like that devotees will have a strong attachment to their guru. They themselves don't have, and even though they may not, I have in mind some prominent leader who, even though they themselves are not initiated by Srila Prabhupada, but they act with Srila Prabhupada disciples as if they're all the same. There's no etiquette there. No proper etiquette. They don't want to promote Sri Guru Charane Rati, but that strong attachment to Guru. But the strong attachment to Guru can help devotees stay in Krishna consciousness and inspire them in Krishna consciousness. And it may help them when or if they become very disturbed with how they're dealt with by authorities in ISKCON, or with the whole ethos within ISKCON. These things happen. It happened with me. With one of my disciples, he was disturbed because he was being pushed by his temple president to collect money, but he said, you see, the town president, he's taking the money and using it for himself. I spoke to the town president, he said, no, this disciple, he's just trying to avoid service. And at that time, I actually sided with the temple president, which I regret because it came out later that the town president was corrupt. Luckily, that disciple is still a very good disciple of mine, but all kinds of complex things. Within the ISKCON system, the gurus are supposed to support the temple presidents. and they may not want to hear from their own disciples who are discontent with the Tamil presidents. There may not be good reason for being discontent, and there may be also. It's very complex. It's easier just to put a picture of a guru on a wall and just forget the whole thing. But that's not the system that Krishna gave us. Or we ought to be a Ritvigvadi and just becomes like Mayavad, that you no one to turn to. I don't want anyone to turn to. Like this, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Being aloof from the Guru might not, I'm saying that some want to be aloof from the Guru, but then it might not be the fault of the disciple. It's just the reality of the situation. They want, but they cannot get direct Guru association. I used to, talking about my own case here, I used to, before all this pandemic thing, I used to regularly hold Shravan Kirtan camps for disciples in different parts of the world, so devotees can come, and at least we can chant and dance together a few days. And not just myself, there are so many festivals, big festivals used to be held in South Russia and different parts of Russia. South Russia one was particularly famous, in Ukraine. Festival of Inspiration at New Vrindavan, I believe, and then different gurus come and devotees can come, and at least they can be with their gurus for a few days. Now, thanks to technology, just like this talk, devotees can associate with the guru by hearing, which is an essential function of the disciple, to hear from the Guru. And follow. That strong attachment to Guru is not dependent on having much personal association. Srila Prabhupada often stressed, and he himself is a great example. He said, I didn't have personal association with my Guru more than a dozen times, but look how he took the instruction of his spiritual master to heart. But you may say, well, what is the relationship of the disciple to the Guru when the Guru doesn't know him at all? He doesn't know his face or his name, and doesn't know he even exists. Well, again, we have Acharya Chaitya Vapusha. The Krishna appears as the Acharya and within the heart. So at least this is my realization, that the relationship between the Guru and the disciple, Krishna knows. Therefore, Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. When someone is serious about taking to spiritual life, then Krishna within the heart directs that person to a Guru. And that interaction between the Guru and the disciple, what is the essence of that? Dibba Gyan Hriday Prakashito. The Guru is a giver of transcendental knowledge, Dibba Gyan. But it's not just a matter of speaking it, or even memorizing it and writing your Bhakti Shastra course. But it's a matter of realizing it. That is done by the Guru. Dibba Gyan Hriday Prakashito. He reveals spiritual knowledge within the heart. And then, Tesham Satata Yuktanang Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mamu Piyanti Te. So it's by the mercy of the Guru, Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasadaha. By the mercy of the Guru, one gets the mercy of Krishna. So when Krishna sees that the disciple is very eager to hear, very sincere to hear, and hridayangam, to accept within his heart the teachings of the Guru, then Krishna gives the intelligence to realize and to internalize those teachings and make them one with his heart. So it's a cooperation. And many times, I know myself in dealings with disciples, and I've heard so many other times also that so many things which we can see how Krishna acts in the life of the disciple who sincerely tries to follow his guru. And of course the gurus, they shouldn't just be blasé and just rubber stamp like a factory line, more disciples, but they should be concerned with seeing that there's a system whereby senior disciples care for the junior disciples who are coming, like this. There's been discussion of distrust of gurus and gurus falling down. I'm just going to read an extract from a discussion that Srila Prabhupada had on February the 12th, 1975. One devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, "Most of the people are still ignoring God. They are so weak-willed. They are so weak-willed that they are easily swayed when somebody comes and claims." Srila Prabhupada interjected, "Well, if one is weak, he may be infected by some disease. It requires some resisting power. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because the devotee was talking about some bogus guru, that some bogus guru comes along and speaks all nonsense, and someone is carried away. So Srila Prabhupada said, therefore Srila Prabhupada said that your answer," he's giving the answer, "only the fortunate persons can get the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Kono bhagyavan jiv." Not all. Kono. Kono means some. Yes, the devotee says. Kono bhagyavan. Srila Prabhupada says, yes, kono bhagyavan jiv. So, as there are, there should be bhagyavan. Someone is rich, someone is poor. This is also due to fortune or misfortune. Similarly, if one is spiritually fortunate, he gets bona fide spiritual master. So there you go. It takes fortune. It takes good fortune to have a bona fide spiritual master. Lot of food for thought there. Guru Bhakti is the cornerstone of spiritual life, Krishna consciousness. We have to discuss also that there are grades of gurus. That will come up in future talks, Krishna willing. For now, I'll finish this talk by offering my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnavas who are like wish-fulfilling trees, who are like oceans of mercy, who are uplifters of the fallen, purifiers of the fallen. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dante nidhaya chunakang padaya nipatya kritva chakakushatamedadaham ravimi. Hey sadhava sakala eva vihaya durat gauranga chandra charane kurutanuragaha. Parivadatu jano yatha tata va nanumokarona vayang vicharayamaha. Harirasa madhira madati mata bhuvi vilutama nartama nirvish